just make a Japanese account and download the Switch Online app from the Japanese eShop. You got it.
That's entirely a possibility too, but I mean, not everybody's going to have the drive or even the foreknowledge to try something like that.
I don't think foreknowledge is a word.
Foreknowledge?
Foreknowledge?
Yeah.
Wait, hold on. Google Foo happening live, folks. Foreknowledge. No, I can't spell knowledge. Knowledge. Wow, this sounds great on an audio podcast. Holy
hello!
It's a word.
Didn't have the foreknowledge for avoiding that one. That was a stretch. I apologize.
Oh my god, just keep talking about video games. What up, kids and squids? Welcome to the Nintendo Everything podcast, episode 11. I am your host, Oni Dino. With me, I have the strongest member of the Federation Force. A Metroid once tried to suck the life out of him, but it got tired. The man himself, Galen.
Why do I have to be part of the Federation Force? I want to be with the pirates.
The space pirates?
Yeah.
You know how evil they are, right?
Well, I like to think of them as more neutral and misunderstood.
I feel like you've never, ever played a Metroid game.
Yeah, that's one where you play as Metroid and you can't crawl.
Yeah, he can't. Right.
Yeah, he can't at all.
Holy crap, Galen! It's 2019 week 2!
Hey!
And so today we have a very special show. We got so much to talk about. So here's how today's special show is going to go. We're going to have a quick adventure log of what we've been playing. We're going to have a quick rundown and chat about the news and game release dates that we got this week. And then we're going to go right into our feature for this episode, All Things Good in 2019. We're talking all the games we know so far, what they're about, our hot takes and BS, and what you'll want to keep your eye out for. Is your body ready, Galen?
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff coming out in 2019. I mean, there is so much good stuff that we haven't even started with, and we're already 2 episodes in just talking about it.
I know! So this is part 2 of our 2019, what do we want to call it? Like, preview. There we go. And I mean, there's still so much more stuff that we're not even going to be able to cover, like so much stuff that we're just forgetting. Also, a big reminder that this is a weekly show. We post it every week on Sundays in the States. iTunes and Spotify listeners get it bright and early on Sunday morning. And everywhere else where podcasts can be found, including our website and YouTube, it comes out like mid-afternoonish. So perfect for a chill Saturday with some gaming, or for a kickstart to your school or work week. So we hope you enjoy. Now, before we jump into all of the goodness that we got planned for you, I want to get serious for like a minute or two here. I want to talk about the big story. I'm using the most big energy air quotes right here. The big story this past week that Nintendo is ditching the console race and getting into mobile gaming, or whatever the tabloids and crazies are saying. And let me break it down for you and tell you what's up, because I worked on that article that started this internet shitstorm. So this past week, we published an article on our website. It's a story that we broke, so to speak. It was just a discussion between Nintendo Japan President Furukawa and Nikkei financial newspaper. It talked about Furukawa's plans for growth, reducing business instability, general things like that. Nothing exciting, honestly. One of our hardworking translators, Nico, he translated this. He was the main translator. It was then sent to me by our boss. At his request, I edited the translation based on the source text, and we repeated that cycle for another round just to be careful with this, and it was all good. And then there are 2 publications in particular that took this article that we wrote, and they ran with it. Not going to call them out by name, but you can figure it out pretty easily, I'm sure. So here's why they ran with it. There is a blurb in our article discussing how Nintendo's been a company for well over 100 years. They've had many business ventures. And, well, you can say they're adventures too. And different cores to their business over the decades. And only since the 70s have they been in the home video game consoles and consumer electronics as their core business. So Furukawa mentions how ingenuity and flexibility got them to where they are today, and it's how it's going to take them to wherever they'll be in the long-term future. He basically said Nintendo's always going to be around, and they're always going to adapt to business and social development, just as they've always been for over 100 years now. He then said, as an example, perhaps in the long-term future, Nintendo could even leave the home console business. And this is the sentence that the tabloid sites took and ran with. They took their egregious crap even further by linking this sentence with a completely unrelated sentence later on in the interview, which was in response to a different question and a different topic. The second sentence was regarding business instability, and Furukawa basically said he's diversifying business endeavors to generate more revenue and, security. These tabloid sites twisted these quotes to make it sound like Nintendo doesn't care about consoles and wants to focus on mobile, which is nowhere near what they said. The article's genuine content is actually very standard stuff. I dare say not even very interesting, which is weird to say because we put it out.
Yeah.
Check out our website for the full translation. It's there. It's clear. It is not possible to misconstrue what Furukawa said unless you intentionally twist the quotes and take them out of context.
Yeah.
We're all very careful and went over it several times to ensure what we reported was accurate, clear, and factual for this very exact reason. So straight up, I just want to say those sites lied to blow this out of proportion for their own gain.
Yeah. And I think more than anything, this just needs to be taken as a cautionary tale just for average readers. I read the article that took these quotes, and I also read the source article too. Oni, just like you said, I mean, the original article is very straightforward. They're talking about business practices as a whole, how they've been able to last this long as a company, and a lot of the questions that were asked in the interview seem very much, I mean, I don't want to call them like guided questions, but there's a very logical answer because they're talking about, hey, what if this worst case scenario happened?
Yeah, it's boring stuff, honestly, that we've heard before from every single company president, yada, yada, yada. It's just that he gave that example of, like, even the thing that we are so successful in right now and we've been so successful in for, like, 50 years now, we're not entirely married to that. So whatever happens in the future, we're here to adapt. That's basically all the thing was saying. And that's such a general statement, you know what I mean? Like, you hear that from all kinds of businesses all the time.
Well, and it's business and economics 101. Like, literally, they teach it in... Yeah, diversify your interests.
Yeah, and anyway, I don't want to go much further into it. All I want to say is that, dear listeners, please look into when websites, and especially certain sites that seem to be acting more like tabloid sites than news sites these days, when they're posting these outrageous things, look at the source. Look into what people are saying. Always question what you're hearing.
That's good advice. Like, the general practice that I've always taken is the more reaction I get out of a headline, the more deeper I need to look into the source material to see how much of it is true.
That's a really good statement. The more like emotional, especially, that a headline like that sounds, the more suspicious you should be.
Exactly.
So that's about it on that front. But big thanks to people on the internet like Arlo on YouTube, Nintendo Voice Chat, and Nintendo Numbers, and even all the other people too, who were all logical about this and were saying this is being blown out of proportion. So thank you to you guys for being the voices of reason. So let's lighten up the mood. Let's do it. Let's lighten up the mood. Sorry, that went a little dark. But how about we jump right into our adventure log? Galen, what have you been playing this week?
So I have been able to hang out with some friends and family, so I have been able to pick up Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes.
Cool.
Yeah, this is an indie game that came out a couple of years ago, and the entire premise is the person, in this case with a Switch, they're looking directly at it, and you don't want to play this on TV. You want to play this in handheld mode because you are trying to disarm a bomb. And there are random puzzles that you have to complete on the bomb, but the only clues that you have are in a downloadable pamphlet that everybody else has to read and explain to you. So it becomes this weird thing of, okay, I'm looking at this bomb, I see 4 red wires and 2 blue wires. out of those 6 wires, what order are they in? And then they have to go through the pamphlet and actually read the instructions to kind of flowchart their way down to eventually say, okay, cut the 3rd wire. And I've learned I'm not necessarily the greatest at explaining directions.
Wow, you are not. I could already tell you that right there.
Oh god, no. I think the first time I played this, I blew us up within the first, 30 seconds. It was so bad.
100% your fault, I'm sure.
Okay, to be fair, and I feel like I have to defend myself on this one.
Nope, moving on. So it sounds like it's kind of like... It's kind of like an escape room kind of thing where everybody has to work together and figure out the puzzle on their own, except that the person with the switch is the timer and is the person and has to do what the people are telling them, otherwise everyone dies.
I like to think of it more as a more advanced version of Simon Says. You have to be very succinct in what you are saying. One of the puzzles on there is, here are 4 buttons that you have to push in an order. And there are symbols on all the buttons, but the symbols are not your traditional square, star.
Oh, so you have to explain it like, it looks like a baby holding an apple.
It looks, yeah, exactly. It looks like the paragraph sign but backwards. This looks like a pregnant T. This looks like, a stick figure dog and some weird Korean symbol or something. It's so much fun, especially when you're in a group of people who are starting to yell over each other, just trying to be like, no, this is on page 6. We have to go over to page 7.
Oh, okay. That's good. That's especially with family and close friends. I think that's good.
Yeah, it's got a very board game-esque mentality of everybody just sits around a kitchen table and plays it, and you don't necessarily have to be a quote-unquote gamer in order to really get enjoyment out of this game. This is the kind of game that you can bring to your family and be like, hey, mom and dad, go ahead and try this out. You get to tell me what to do like you've always been wanting to do.
Except for that last sentence there, that all sounds really awesome. It's on the Switch, yeah?
Yeah, actually. Just recently came out on the Switch, I want to say.
Cool.
I know it recently went on sale. That's kind of what sparked me to pick it up, so.
Oh. Man, had I known more about this, I probably would have picked it up on sale. But I'll take a look at it anyway.
It's a lot of fun. And even off sale, I think it's like only $15. It's one of those cheaper indie games that are out there.
Nice. So as for me, I have finally sunk my teeth into GRIS.
Oh, how is it?
Incredible, actually. It's like incredible. I knew I was going to like it, but I didn't know what I was prepared for, or I didn't know what I was in store for. What? What are these words? Anyway.
You didn't know what was coming.
There we go. Thank you. My translator. So this came out I think 3 or 4 weeks ago, maybe. I picked it up right away because I was like, I need it. And then I just busy, end of year stuff. And I finally played it. I knew it was a puzzle platformer. I knew it was an indie game. Oh, I want to give a shout out to the developers, Nomada Studios, out of Barcelona, Spain, and the publishers, Devolver Digital. So I knew, being published by Devolver, that I could expect a unique and quality game. So I was already I'll get in the car, you just drive, take me wherever this is going. So that's why I bought it. What I didn't know about it, though, because of course you see a screenshot, you see the trailer, you see it's very charming. It has a stencil artwork accompanied by watercolors. But what I didn't know is how incredible the music was and how the classic orchestral instrumentation was going to accompany the visuals. The music ends up building and breaking down with gameplay in a very well integrated manner. It's an intensely emotional experience in a visual and auditorial manner.
When I was watching trailers for this game, I remember getting very much a Journey-esque vibe from it.
Totally, I thought the same thing.
Yeah, especially when it comes to the music, because even just watching the trailers, I very much felt like this was going to be the kind of game where you wanted to pay attention to the music, because the music makes up so much of the game and so much of how you feel while playing the game. Did you get that feeling?
Absolutely true. the music is just as important and just as powerful as those visuals are. So when you see that game and you're like, oh, this doesn't really look like any other game, and this animates unlike a game. Like, it's sort of like a Cuphead, where Cuphead is a, what are those called? Rubber hose animation style. And you're like, wow, this doesn't look like a game. This is the same way, just in a different art style. This is with stencils and watercolors. Going to the gameplay, it's a puzzle platformer. It has good puzzles, nothing too hard, but definitely something you have to think about for a little bit, which is a perfect blend and perfect balance for the kind of emotional experience that they're trying to evoke from you on this. So I really enjoyed those puzzles.
Yeah, I'm really happy to hear this. I'm going to be picking it up next time it goes on sale, because this game looks amazing.
Yes, absolutely. And it's not even just, like, as much as I loved the way it looked, like, it was the emotions that it gave me that I appreciated the most out of this game. So I highly recommend it to anybody who appreciates art and creativity, not only in the way that you can appreciate how a game is made, but how it makes you feel, how a game can make you feel. And the mental and emotional experience that it evoked from me was my favorite part of this game. There's not a lot of heavy-hitting story or anything really concrete. There's a lot of abstract storytelling, so that's sort of open to your own interpretation, but there is like sort of a clear direction that the narrative is taking you through, like a personal struggle kind of thing. Everything's told through visuals and music and emotion, and it's great. I would recommend, because this is the way I played it, so I would recommend you play it not at night, but later for sure.
Okay.
With like a TV and either good headphones or just like the TV on loud. If you play it on the TV, there's lots of little details that are happening in the background or the foreground. You probably end up losing that a little bit in handheld mode, but I wouldn't fault anybody who wants to play it in handheld mode with like a pair of quality headphones, because, the music.
Yeah. So you're saying that it's definitely a game that you want to immerse yourself in.
Yes, definitely. If you're a person who likes exploring their own emotions, who is kind of introverted, perhaps, like everybody is to some degree, but if you can appreciate those kinds of parts of yourself, the happiness and the sadness, because this game makes you feel a bunch of different things, I think you'll really get a lot out of it. And it's not expensive. It's, I think, $16 or $17 US on the American eShop. So totally worth it. So if it sounds intriguing to you, just go for it. Just dive head deep. So that's it for the adventure log. Let's jump right into a quick news recap and discussion, and then we're going to our feature, What's Good in 2019?
All right.
Springman!
So for news, we got lots of little good tidbits happening. The Humble store is now selling Nintendo games, which is great. Humble always has like those little bundle things happening, and they also have charity donation system where you can sort of choose what you want to go to charity. So I think that's great, and just more options to buy video games. Cool.
And I'm surprised to see this, because in the past I don't remember the Humble store really having that many Nintendo games. Like I think the last time that they had a sale for something in the eShop was like back in 2016. I'm very excited seeing Nintendo games come up in their store, because I'm really hoping to see more of their Humble Bundle sales coming up in the future too.
Yeah, so before they never just like sold Nintendo games outright, the digital games. They just only had the Humble Bundles, which were still few and far between, but very exciting.
Yeah, they're very few and far between, and I'm really hoping that this is a sign of things to come on more of a partnership between Nintendo and them.
Yes. Moving on, we got release dates for Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn on Nintendo 3DS, launching March 8th. And then Yoshi's Crafted World launches on Nintendo Switch, March 29th. Now, I wanted to talk about this for a second here, because these are two games that have some overlap, right? They're both 2D platformers, and they both have that, crafted art style. Like, Yoshi is going like a step further from the woolly aesthetic from Yoshi's Woolly World, and then Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn is like everything is made out of yarn and fluffy and soft. So, I mean, of course, there are very different games in terms of like gritty gameplay, but there is a lot of overlap, right? So why are they launching in the same exact month?
I think March is going to be a very soft, fluffy, and enjoyable month.
That is true.
No, I feel like this is very deliberate with what they're doing right now. They are linking these two together at a time that's like the end of winter, people wanting to stretch out their creativity a little bit more once spring starts to roll around. I feel like this has a subconscious element to it.
Yeah, I do agree. But I think that maybe they couldn't get it out sooner, but I think Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn launching, say, second week of February, I think that would have done better because it's a little bit more spaced out. I think February is a quiet month, just the video game industry over.
Mm-hmm.
If both of those are coming out within 2-3 weeks of each other, and you're a busy adult, then you're probably only going to pick up one. It's probably going to be the more attractive console, the Switch. And it's the newer game, like Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn is a updated port with newer features. Then if you have a kid, you're probably only going to buy them one game as opposed to both. I wonder if it'll hurt sales of Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn a little bit, but I don't know.
It's hard to say in this case. One thing that I am personally taking about this is that it makes more sense to kind of spread this out a little bit, like have one of these two games come out a little bit later in the year, like late July, early August, or even in the September area. Because it's a Kirby game and a Yoshi game. This is two of Nintendo's big franchises.
Mm-hmm.
It personally makes me excited that if they are shoving these two so close to each other, what are they making room for later in the year?
I guess you could I think that's a dangerous way to think about it, but that is exciting.
I like to live and think dangerously.
Moving forward, we got some news from the publisher, FDG Entertainment, of the recently released video game Monster Boy. About a little over a month ago, Monster Boy released on the Switch and pretty much everything else. FDG made a tweet that said Monster Boy on Switch outsold everything else 8-1. So just more great news of indies absolutely obliterating everything on the Switch. Not that every single indie is doing that, but we are hearing consistent news of indies performing very well on the Switch, whether it's like Meat Boy, where it's on everything, but then it releases on the Switch and it still sells amazing numbers, or whether it's something like this where it just completely outsells everything else. This is just awesome news.
It is awesome news. I'm kind of questioning what they're talking about when they say everything else, because you're also putting this up against the same time frame as Smash Bros. Being launched. Are they comparing it to all the other eShop games? Are they comparing it to all the other indie games?
No, this is in regards to Monster Boy releasing on Switch versus Monster Boy releasing on PlayStation, Steam, that kind of thing.
Oh, okay. See, that makes a lot more sense then. That makes so much more sense. Okay.
Monster Boy outsold Smash Bros 8-1.
Well, when you say you outsold everything else,
you can't talk yourself out of that corner. You stay there. You stay there until you die. The next bit of news is the games for Nintendo Switch Online for this month. We're getting Zelda 2 and Blaster Master. Both really good games. Zelda 2 is kind of like it's the outlier for sure, but I think in retrospect, I think it can be really appreciated just how different that game was and just how ambitious it was. There's rough edges in that game for sure, but I would actually love to see Nintendo be like, here, indie developer we trust, or whatever third-party developer we trust, remake this game and keep it 2D and do what we really wanted to do back then. Because I love that style of Zelda, actually. I would love to see it explored. Have you ever played it?
I have, actually. Didn't get very far in it. When I played it, I was much younger and was much less patient when it comes to difficulty curves.
And also stupider. You were stupider.
Well, No, I do remember this game, and I actually remember replaying it again back when they came out with the Master Quest disc on Wind Waker.
Oh yeah. That was the super limited one though.
The super limited.
Yeah, you still got that?
Yeah, I got access to it. Let me put it that way. You had to pre-order it at, I think it was Best Buy at the time, and you had to pre-order a copy of Wind Waker. But when you did that, it came with the Master Quest version of Ocarina of Time plus Zelda 1, Zelda 2. I think that was it. I can't remember if there were any other games on there. regardless, that was the first time that I started playing this game seriously. And yeah, it definitely has a much different aesthetic to it. It was very jarring to go into that side-scrolling. I don't necessarily think it was a bad choice, and I definitely think if they had continued on with that, Zelda could have been a very different game. And you also see little tidbits and homages to that style in some of the later games that they played. Like there was a lot of the Game Boy games also had a 2D style when you went into some of the dungeons.
Oh yeah, you're right. I forgot about that.
Overall, yeah, I think they're good games to come out with the NSO. Still don't know if it fully justifies the lack of other features for the service, but that's a discussion we've already had once before. So
yeah, it sounds like you're spinning you're spinning on your heels and making a 180 on that, huh?
Yeah, a little bit. Oni, have you ever played Blaster Master? I've actually haven't played this one before.
I never played the original Blaster Master, but I did play the what is it? It's like a remake plus a sequel-ish that they came out with that was like an indie game on the Switch and 3DS and a couple other places. So I played that, and the first level in particular is like a remake of the first level of the original, so I've heard. So I have played that. It's great, and I'm definitely going to check out Blaster Master. And then also of note, Japan is getting Joy Mecha Fight, which is a game that never came to the West, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. So Japan gets 3.
Now, I think this is actually kind of a failed moment for the Switch Online service, because I would like to see them bring some of these games that didn't make a Western release over through the service.
Yeah, I think that they should just bring it over anyway, like they did with Sin and Punishment on the Wii Virtual Console, where they did bring over that Japanese version, and they did like give you the caveat of some of these things are still in Japanese, so you can still play it, you can still enjoy it, but
yeah. And it's very easy to make a little like disclaimer before you get into it, and it's a free game. I mean, worst case scenario is you play it, you have no idea what's going on, and you're like, all right, go ahead and skip to the next one.
On that same thought, though, just make a Japanese account and download the Switch Online app from the Japanese eShop. You got it.
That's entirely a possibility, too, but, I mean, not everybody's going to have the drive or even the foreknowledge to try something like that.
I don't think foreknowledge is a word.
Foreknowledge?
Foreknowledge?
Yeah.
Wait, hold on. Google Foo happening live, folks. Foreknowledge. No, I can't spell knowledge. Knowledge. Wow, this sounds great on an audio podcast. Holy shit.
Hello!
It's a word.
Didn't have the foreknowledge for avoiding that one. That was a stretch. I apologize.
Oh my god. Just keep talking about video games.
Yeah, I feel like putting out these Japanese games on the US market as well would increase the exposure and let people know about, hey, there are some games that didn't make their way over to the West, so this might be something that you want to look into. I feel like it's a very low risk, high gain solution.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's no reason not to. They can be like, hey, here's this game that you never got before, so might as well try it, you know?
Yeah. So, and we were talking a little bit, not last week, the week before, but about like the learning curves for Nintendo as far as like dealing with an online world in a sense. I feel like this is an opportunity from them to kind of like go over that learning curve and be like, hey, this is something that we can do very easily. There's very low risk and there's a lot to gain from it at the same time. So.
Yeah, there's no reason not to. I think you're right. They should just do that. But at the same time, it's also like so unimportant too in the grand scheme of things.
It's true. I feel like it's one of those small like quality of life conveniences. As a company, they could do very simply just for the sake of like making things easier and more inviting for their consumers.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
And so for our last blurb of news that we got here, everybody hold on to your butts because April is basically Christmas Part 2. We got a bunch of video game announcements in this past week. We got...
Really quick, what am I doing with it?
Shut up. We got Mortal Kombat 11 releasing April 23rd on the Switch. Final Fantasy X, Final Fantasy X-2 releasing April 16th on the Switch. Final Fantasy XII The Zodiac Age, April 30th on the Switch. And then, my favorite of these announcements, Capcom out of nowhere announces they're bringing Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen to Switch on April 23rd. You ever played that game?
Dragon's Dogma? No. Which is strange because I own it. Like, I don't know how. I got a free copy of it at some point, but it just sat in my download queue and I never actually started up the game.
Interesting. Is it on the PS4?
PS3?
Okay. So I own it on the PS3 and the PS4. The PS4 version is great, and that's the version that's coming to Switch as well. The one with all the quality of life updates and little visual updates too. But it's mostly the quality of life updates that matter the most. I've heard some people being like, "Oh, it's a poor man's Dark Souls" or something. Not the case. Not the case at all. It doesn't play like Dark Souls. I guess like you could say the setting is similar in that it's a high fantasy or a dark fantasy kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's similar. But I mean, whatever. Like medieval fantasy hasn't existed before. But it plays very differently from Dark Souls. It plays very differently from like Skyrim or something like that. It's what I think this game originally is Capcom's response to trying to make Monster Hunter more popular in the West. And that was before Monster Hunter really blew up here.
Yeah. I've heard some people compare it as if you were to take Dark Souls and combine it with the Dragon Age franchise. Like, that would be a good summation of like how the game feels when you're playing it.
I mean, honestly, I don't think it feels like Dark Souls very much at all. Maybe it feels a little bit more like, the Dragon Age Inquisition. It feels a little bit like that. That one's faster, I want to say, but it's a better comparison in terms of like game feel and battle than Dark Souls. It's just that everybody wants to compare everything to Dark Souls right now. You know what I mean? Like, oh, did you see the new Mario game? It's kind of like Dark Souls. Oh my God, shut up. You know? So I'm pretty hyped for this. Also, it's apparently going to be pretty cheap. There is one listing of where you can pre-order it right now, to my knowledge, and it's on the US Amazon store, and it's like listed as like $28 on there. Like, whoa, $28.
Really cheap.
That's awesome. So if Capcom's releasing this at a budget price, that's great, because you can buy it on other platforms right now for $20. So if it comes out on the Switch and it's like $30, awesome. That's really, really great, and I think that should be celebrated and supported. So I'm going to probably buy it a third time. And then finally for April is something a little bit more shaky. It's Shovel Knight Treasure Trove. The physical edition is listed on Best Buy in the United States as April 9th. So I'm thinking if they're still going to hit that date, the final updates like King of Cards are also going to be included at that time. But we haven't heard anything from the team over at Yacht Club on it recently. So that's a little up in the air just based on how it's been delayed a little bit before. So anyway, April is full of video games, and you guys better work some overtime in February or whatever so you can afford these games.
Or March.
But no, March you're going to be playing the soft fuzzy games like Yoshi and Kirby.
Yeah. Well, you can bundle yourself up in those games.
No, bundle. Say that and go with it.
Bundle.
You want a Mortal Kombat? You want a Final Fantasy? You better work.
Listen, I have the foreknowledge to just completely sidestep this entire conversation.
Moving on.
Actually, really quick before we go back, I wanted to ask how you felt about 3 different Final Fantasy games coming out in the same month.
That is kind of weird. That's kind of the same situation of like, I mean, they're totally different games. They really, really are. So it's kind of weird that they're releasing them in the same month, but I don't know. What is it? I thought it was the end of March where a lot of Japanese companies will do their end of year results, but maybe it's end of April where they're doing it for Square Enix. I don't know.
That would make a lot of sense, actually.
But I swear it's end of March. So yeah, I don't know what the reason is for doing that. It's strange, but these are definitely older games, just like with Kirby, where that's an older game, so it's less of a concern with me. But it is weird.
I mean, I would get it if they were to do Final Fantasy X and X-2 close together, and I think these two are actually launching on the same day.
That's because they're bundled together into one release.
They're bundled together?
Yeah.
Okay. No, it's just Final Fantasy 12 just came out of left field on being like, oh, hey, 2 weeks later, and you also get to get this game, too.
Yeah, it's strange. You ever played any of those? Well, you
I have,
played
actually.
10, of course, yeah.
Yeah, no, I played all 3 of these, actually.
Cool.
And they're all good games, and they're also not short games, either.
They're all very long.
They are incredibly long games, and incredibly detailed, too. I mean, even if you have, like, a completionist mindset, Final Fantasy 12 alone will take a couple hundred hours to, like, unlock everything on the sphere grid and everything like that to fully maximize your character's potential.
Yeah, but if you're a completionist, you're literally a crazy person.
Oh, that's true.
I remember playing 12 back in the day and really, really not liking it. So I never got that far in it. I still have like the collector's edition nonsense thing that's worth about like $6 or whatever at trade-in value.
Yeah.
So apparently they produced like 1 million of those special limited edition things. I'm thinking though, like after all of the quality of life updates and the international version and job switching stuff that they added to 12, I am thinking about maybe picking this up and giving it a try again. I've got a friend, what up, Alan? He loves this game, and I was like, no, this game sucks. And then I'm like, man, thinking to myself, like, man, don't be that guy. Like, you haven't played that game in forever. You just didn't have a good experience with it like that many years ago. Don't be that guy. So maybe I'll give it a shot.
I love the running joke for Final Fantasy 12 that you can set up the macros to the point where you get into the last boss battle and you can set the controller down, come back 45 minutes later, and it's done for you.
Yeah. And, I don't hate that idea. I honestly don't.
Yeah. What I'm more excited about is with these longer RPGs, finally having them on something of a portable console that I can take around with me. And I wonder if that's why they are launching these so close to each other, is they have the mindset of, well, if people are taking it with them, they're going to have more chances to play it, so they're going to want to have more content to play sooner.
Sure. That doesn't really make sense to me, but sure. So, that concludes it for the news. Now, moving on to the feature for this episode, 2019 and beyond.
Beyond!
Hey, good. So, let's talk about 3 really big games that are coming out this year. We're talking about Daemon X Machina, which is sometime in 2019. The upcoming Pokemon game, sometime in 2019, and the upcoming Luigi's Mansion 3, probably in October, but it still says sometime in 2019. Let's talk about Daemon X Machina. Do you know about this game?
I know about this game. I remember when it was announced. It was announced last E3, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the first trailer that Nintendo opened up their E3 Direct with, and it was like, What is happening? What is this? Is this Armored Core? What? It was awesome. It blew my freaking socks off.
Yeah. I was never that big of an Armored Core kind of guy, even though I love my giant robots and my giant lasers.
Yeah, that's really weird that you were not into Armored Core.
I know. Well, and it's like you not being into Monster Hunter. Like all the stuff is there. You should like it, but something just didn't click for you. And that's kind of how it was with me.
But the thing is, I tried out Monster Hunter, right? I tried it out several times, actually.
Uh-huh.
So I'm better than you.
Oh, okay.
So what are your impressions of this game? What do you think?
I feel like I am not as excited about this game as you are.
That's understandable. I'm too excited.
I'm always happy to see Nintendo come out with new IPs because anytime they have the pedigree to take risks on stuff, and anything that they are willing to take a risk on definitely has something special behind it. So I feel like there's going to be a different flavor to this game than any other game we have seen before. Now, whether that is a good thing or a bad thing, that is yet to be seen.
Good thing.
Yeah.
Even if they fall on their face with it, still a good thing. Still good for the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. I think more risks need to be taken in the industry. With that being said, I mean, I'll wait and see on this one. I might wait for a couple of reviews before I jump into actually picking up this game. It looks pretty. Yeah, of the 3 games that we just mentioned, this is definitely on the bottom of the list of games that I am excited for. Let me put it that way.
Oh. Well, let me say a little bit about why I am so excited. Nintendo is getting together Shoji Kawamori, the writer of several entries in Macross and the mech designer for tons of animation and games, including Eureka 7 and several entries in Armored Core. And then they're also getting together Kenichiro... I'm struggling whether I say this in like English or Japanese. It's weird. So Kenichiro Tsukuda. There we go. It's hard. It's hard when you speak a language and you're speaking it in the other language. You know what I mean? I don't know. Bilingual people will understand. Anyway, this guy Tsukuda, he has been the producer on almost all the entries of the Armored Core series, starting with Armored Core 2. So these two together are like a perfect match to create a fantastic action-adventure mech game. So what we know about this game so far is that the moon has fallen and everyone and everything is on the brink of extinction. There's some sort of energy source that they have recently discovered called, I think it was called Femto or something like that, something kind of weird. And that's what people are trying to fight over. The mechs in the game, speaking of, we should stop calling them mechs. They're called arsenals in this game, which is a strong name for mechs in this game. You know how like lots of mech anime or video games will have like their own unique word for, right? I think arsenal is a really good choice.
This is my mobile suit. This is my driver software. This is my... Okay, arsenal. I like that one.
Yeah. It reminds me of something as simple but powerful as Gears from Xenogears.
Yeah.
So you fly around, action RPG elements, you're picking up weapons and equipping them on the fly. There's skill trees not only for your mechs, but for your character as well. Oh, and the characters, by the way, are being designed by, I forgot the dude's name, the same guy that designed Fire Emblem Fates and Fire Emblem... What was the other one? Fire Emblem Awakening's characters. So the characters are, they got that anime aesthetic to it. We do know that there's online co-op for 4 people, so they can fight these huge, gigantic bosses, which is pretty cool. I'm guessing that it is a single-player adventure outside of that, but we don't know. But for me, that's great. I prefer single-player adventure games.
You had me at the guy from Macross and the guy from Armored Core doing this together. Like, I should be more excited about this game. Why am I not more excited about this game?
It's okay. Just keep it on your radar, man. We're going to hear way more
definitely.
details about it in the next Direct, whenever that happens. So just keep it on your radar,
Yeah, this is one that I'm definitely excited to hear more details about. I'm not sold on it just yet.
Ugh. I was sold on it as soon as it popped up, and it has that high contrast art style, the eye-popping visuals, Devil May Cry edgelord music. That's when I was sold. Like, I am not an edgelord myself, but I am like a big fan of the edge, right? Like, I don't think I'll ever be an edgelord because I think I apologize too much or I'm just a little bit too nice, but I am a fan. I am a fan of it. So this is gearing up to be, there you go, gearing up to be Nintendo's Armored Core, but with lots of close combat too. And the gameplay also reminds me a bit of Zone of the Enders, which is one of the best games ever.
Now that is a game that I am super into. I am totally down. If it plays anything similar to that game, you've sold me at that point.
There is some similarities. You pick up stuff and you manipulate the environments to drop like buildings on your enemies and explode a vehicle that has gasoline in it to explode more enemies. You know how you could do that with Zone of the Enders? You picked stuff up and you threw it at the enemy. You could pick the enemy up and throw it at other enemies, remember?
I'm now having flashbacks of the versus mode and just getting absolutely trounced by anybody who would play Anubis because that guy was so broken.
Yeah, he was pretty OP.
So you're telling me that this is definitely a game that you're going to add to your arsenal?
So the next big game, the new Pokemon game. We know, I think, nothing. I think we actually know nothing about this game.
Well, we know absolutely nothing at this game except for one fact that is springing to mind for me. There was an interview with the lead producer who was saying that he was having a lot of difficulty actually programming it for the Switch. And his biggest difficulty was coming up with new innovations and way to make the game feel fresh on this new console. I'm definitely respectful of that. I really appreciate how they're approaching it from, or more than just, hey, we have this high-def console that we can make our Pokemon look very pretty on. They're trying to go beyond that. They're trying to make this game feel much more special compared to the other ones. I would honestly not be surprised if we do not see this game this year.
I would not be surprised either.
Yeah.
I also appreciate that they are thinking about like innovations, making it brand new, making it fresh, because honestly, that's what I want to see. I want to see that this is, of course, a new generation of Pokemon, but this is also making the jump onto a different hardware. And I'm hoping it doesn't just kind of look like Pokemon Let's Go. I'm sure it's going to play very differently than Let's Go.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But I hope it looks very different, too.
Quick question. What did you feel about the last Pokemon game that they came out with for the 3DS?
Like Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, right?
Yeah.
So I haven't played it. I have Sun, and I need to play that still. I heard that there's a lot of differences in it, which makes me very excited, but I heard some of them weren't well received and some of them were well received, so I just kind of got to play it for myself to figure it out. But I'm all about them shaking up the formula of Pokemon, to be honest.
No, there was a lot in the game that felt similar, but I feel like there was a lot of things where they kind of leaned a little bit too heavily on the nostalgia aspect of it. The whole twist on the alternate Alolan Pokemon, for example.
I liked that, actually.
I liked that, but I was a little less excited about it when I actually came across one in-game, and I feel like that had a lot to do with how many of them were spoiled before the game actually launched.
Oh.
I feel like part of that, like, it should have been a lot more excitement in, oh my god, this Pokemon looks so different compared to what I'm normally seeing. I went into the game already expecting that, and that might just be me ruining the game for myself by knowing too much before I went into it.
Maybe.
I'm really hoping that was one of my big criticisms of the game, and one of the criticisms that I also had other people explain to me in the past as well. So I'm hoping that they kind of take that into consideration when they are making this new one. And I'm really hoping that when they're coming up with a way to make this game feel fresh, it's more than just, hey, here's a different coat of paint on some of the Pokemon that you've seen before in the past.
As long as they're going to change up like a ton of stuff, I would be fine not seeing this game in 2019. Of course, everybody would be disappointed. Pokemon's huge right now. I'm sure they're really pushing to make sure this hits the winter Christmas release of 2019, but I don't know. Like, just so I think I've talked about this a little bit before. For me, I want to see them change up so much. I want it to be a bigger focus on exploration and discovery of Pokemon rather than going from route to route, town to town, which is fine, but it's tried and true, but it's been going on for so long. I would love for them to take a page out of something like Monster Hunter or Xenoblade Chronicles Cross, where there's more exploration and you're sort of discovering Pokemon in their own habitat. There was so much excitement for me when I was playing Xenoblade Cross on the Wii U, and suddenly coming across this new creature, like, whoa, what is this? And oh, it's drinking out of the little pond, and oh, it's playing with its friends, and like things like that, I think would be so much fun to see, because the star of the show is Pokemon, right? Like, seeing these Pokemon interact in their own environments in the whatever ways they do is adorable, and I think that should be brought more to the foreground.
So here's a question I just thought of. With every Pokemon game and every new generation that they've come out with, they've always improved and innovated on the battling system in some way. Sometimes they are huge advancements, such as introducing the natures in everything, and as far as like how you're raising your Pokemon and how that interacts, how they play in the game, to double battles, to triple battles, to switch battles. What kind of innovations do you think they could possibly make at this point, or would you like to see? And how far is too far as far as changing it from the core of how a Pokemon game feels to play?
So for me, number one, Pokemon should always be turn-based.
Okay.
In the main series, it should always be turn-based. You can have your offshoots and your side stories, side games or whatever, where it goes totally different. That's fine. In terms of innovations and what's going on behind the scenes during the battles and whatnot, I can't speak to that because I am not knowledgeable about that at all. In terms of Pokemon, I'm not a hardcore battler or hardcore player. If it plays exactly the same as before the last generation with, it has the special moves and the mega evolutions and junk like that, that's honestly fine for me because there's a lot to ingest, right? So I like that they do a good job of it being like, okay, there's the stuff for the hardcore people where you have to utilize all those things. Then there's also the stuff where you don't have to use those things. You can still play the game and it's fine. So for me, that's very accommodating. So outside of the battle system is what I really care about more. Discovery is what I care about the most.
So you were always more interested in the exploration and finding the Pokemon than actually using the Pokemon.
Not always. Like back on the red and blue and yellow versions especially, I loved raising the Pokemon and battling and stuff. But over time, over 20 something years of this? Yeah. I like walking around and discovering much more.
I definitely get that.
I would love I don't know if I've said this to you on our podcast or if we were just talking about this, but I would love to see them use the Breath of the Wild engine, where it's a bit more of a behind the shoulder camera and you're just exploring and trying to find Pokemon. Not like jumping up on everything and you can climb anything because that game would take forever to make, but make something that's not necessarily open world, but a little bit more open. A little bit more open than route to route. That way you can explore things. You can suddenly go up a hill and you see the sun shining toward you. And then in the sun, you see a silhouette of a really big Pokemon. Then it runs away and you're like, oh, what was that? Or, a Pokemon suddenly burrows into a little cave and you're like, oh, what was that over there? Like things like that I think would be so much fun. And it would make me appreciate the Pokemon so much more rather than just having them to battle.
Something that's a little bit more immersive and that invites you to want to explore it, as opposed to just being like, well, okay, now you're on Route 12 and you're going off to the cave.
Yeah, I mean, and even if it is like, seriously, this is Route 12 and this is the cave that you lead into, but just make it visually appealing where it feels like I'm exploring this place and I'm not just like walking through it.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that one. I would love to see more of that organic exploration.
Yeah.
But I kind of backtracked myself a little bit beforehand. But to answer your question, in battles, one thing that I would love to see, find some sort of a middle ground and bridge the gap to make battles feel a little bit more involved beyond the traditional turn-based strategy that would go into it.
Ooh. I just thought of this. Timed hits. Oh. Add timed hits. Like Super Mario RPG.
That would be fun.
My God, do that, and I'll buy every edition of Pokemon and eat it up. Oh, do that.
Well, and one thing that I was thinking of was I would love to see Pokemon go on to something of a grid system. So
they won't do that with the main series. They won't do that.
I would love to see it as a battle type. Because, I mean, and you don't even have to... You can make it as your action that you're moving to a different space, or you're moving back, and certain attacks that you're using can only... the Mega Man Battle Network series is a great
I knew you were going to talk about that.
Well, that's kind of what I got it from, but, I mean, I feel like if you were to find some way to introduce that as a turn-based element, as opposed to it being a timed live action element like it is in Battle Network, I think that is the kind of innovation and step forward that would really show how Pokemon has evolved. Pun kind of intended.
Oh yeah, that was good. Good job.
Oh, thank you.
I'm gonna throw a realistic spin on that because I don't think that they're ever gonna go that far with something that needs such...
This is totally a pipe dream for me.
Yeah. I was pipe dreaming too, so I'm not faulting you for that. The things that I said, I don't think that any of that is really going to happen with this next Pokemon, but I would love it.
Yeah.
But anyway, a realistic spin on that is in battles where there are 2 or more Pokemon on your team, you could have a front and back,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like old Final Fantasy games, where you always had someone in the back and someone in the front. So if they were in the back, they deal less physical damage, but they take less physical damage. And then there's certain attacks that work best from the back or still deal as much damage, like a bow or whatever. So with Pokemon, then, you know, certain attacks would be a front attack or a back attack or versatile or whatever.
Yeah, just something to add, just that little more layer of strategy if you want to use it in the game.
Yeah, I could honestly see them doing something like that. So we don't know. We don't know anything about this, so we're just going to have to wait.
If we even see it this year.
Hopefully they just increase the team that they need and they make it happen, because they know it's Pokemon. They know it's going to sell. So
I feel like this is in the same category as Metroid Prime 4.
This is leagues above Metroid Prime 4 in terms of importance.
No. I'm saying in regards to how much information we currently know versus what our expectations are versus when is an acceptable time to expect this game to come out. I think we're either going to see a new Pokemon game or we're going to see a new Metroid game. I do not think we're going to see both of them.
So if I recall correctly, 2019 is the schedule date for Pokemon, but Metroid does not have that. Metroid is completely open. So I really don't think we're going to see Metroid, and maybe we won't even see Pokemon, but if they do that, they're going to replace it with something real important at the end of the year for sure. And we're going to have to wait for directs and see what's going on. There's more games that they haven't even like talked about or announced yet. Mm-hmm. They're going to be coming up throughout this year.
Well, and this is why 2019 is so exciting, is that they've got so many different paths and so many different directions that Nintendo can go that I'm really excited to see what's the end result. What do they finally present to us?
Yeah, it's already a big year in terms of not what we already know, but what games we already know about. I'm excited about that, also knowing that there's more games that nobody knows about yet. It's going to be a packed year and a very, very important year for the Nintendo Switch. And then going to our third game that we have here, Luigi's Mansion 3. We saw a little bit of this game, like very early visuals of it. You can kind of tell it doesn't look all that great. And we don't really know anything about it other than it is Luigi's Mansion. You're sucking up ghosts with a vacuum.
And I mean, really, I'm fine with that. Like, I really do hope we see this game this year. I know they're announcing it. I think it's very easy to predict that it is going to be coming out sometime either late September or early October.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Any other time makes no sense whatsoever.
Right.
Oni, how have you felt on the past Luigi Mansion games?
So I loved that first game on the GameCube. It was very much like a Metroid-style progression or a Resident Evil-style progression. That's what I love the most about it. I love games like that. The second game, I didn't like as much, even though it was like really well received among fans. I didn't like the mission structure. I understand why they went with that direction, because for the 3DS, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. The second game I actually had a little bit of problems getting into, because separating it out into the chapters like they did in that second game, I felt like I was revisiting the same mansion too many times, and it really kind of stifled that sense of exploration. I feel like you can still negate progress while going through the mansion like that, and have it feel much more organic than the events that are going to happen each and every chapter that you go through. And the places that, okay, I can't go to this place until I hit chapter 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I really hope that they do away with that and they go back to the open mansion setup. And I do hope they also keep having multiple mansions and multiple places to explore. Even going into something of a Metroidvania, you unlock something and you have to go back to a previous mansion in order to access using what you just unlocked.
Yes, I love when games do that, where backtracking is done well. It's fantastic.
Yeah, the Luigi's Mansion series begs for that kind of backtracking. So I'm really excited about this game. I can't wait to actually see what they're going to be doing with it. and what they're going to bring forward with the new series.
Yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm hoping that it turns out to be more like number 1, just bigger and better. Honestly, I just want to see Resident Evil style gameplay where there's lots of puzzles to discover, there's backtracking, unlocking doors, reading documents and figuring out mysteries. I love that stuff, and that's what I really want to see out of this game.
Luigi goes down a dark hallway, and then all of a sudden 2 chain chomps burst through the window. Nom, 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 nom.
That would be super cool. Are you kidding? That'd be great.
That would be awesome. I would totally be okay with that.
Yeah, just like little light spooks like that where kids can still play it, but they might still be like just a little scared. Like, that'd be super cool, dude.
Luigi's Mansion, a kid-friendly Resident Evil.
In addition to all of this, I will bet my money that they'll introduce a partner mechanic in this, and I hope to the shine sprites above that it is Daisy.
Oh, that would be so much fun.
I think so too. I'm not even like a Daisy fan or anything like that, but if it starts out and they need, another character, like instead of doing Gooigi or whatever they did for the 3DS remake of the first game, just do Daisy. It'd be fun. Like help establish their relationship together, and they're like, joking around, and like it's funny because Luigi's the scared one and Daisy can be the more brave but still like slightly scared like a normal person would be in that situation. And I think that'd be a really fun dynamic to establish.
I can totally see so many occasions where like Abu comes around the corner, it's Luigi and Daisy down the hallway, and then Luigi just jumps behind and hides behind Daisy's dress.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, instead of a dress though, I'd rather see her in a little bit more of an athletic kind of gear. I don't know if athletic is the right word, but just not a dress, like something that's a little bit more functional for ghost busting. So I would love to see Daisy in this game as the player too. I'm sure that they're going to do a 2-player thing because, the Switch kind of, take the controller off and play it with anybody, anywhere, that kind of thing.
Oh, that's entirely right.
Yeah.
I was actually about to ask, do you think you'd see more than 2 people? Like, do you think you could see a 4-player co-op in this, but 2-player makes so much more sense?
I mean, I think it would be cool if they did some sort of online co-op thing as like a mini game or as like a side thing, kind of like they did with the second game. That was kind of fun and very difficult. So that's cool. But in terms of like the main game, an optional 2-player adventure style where you could play the game together with Daisy, that would be so cool. I want to see that. Or even if it's not optional, if that's like seriously the narrative where it's like Luigi and Daisy together, I love that. Just do that. Just make more characterization.
Yeah. Breaking away from Daisy, though, you have so much more character potential in that game. I mean, being able to select characters to choose from, you have EGAD that you can play as. You have
for the online multi-mode, I would like to see something like that.
Exactly. Daisy, EGAD, Mario, or Yoshi.
Yeah.
Waluigi. You know what? Waluigi for Luigi's Mansion 3. Boom.
I still want to see like a Super Wario Brothers game. That's what I really want to see. And it can be
that
whatever.
That would be fun. That would be so much fun.
Yeah. The stars are those 2 characters. They're fan favorites.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever game you want to make, just go ahead, but turn it into the Super Wario Brothers.
Wah, wah, wah.
Wah. So we got a bunch more games to bring up. So let's move on and talk a little bit just about all these games and kind of remind everybody what else is coming out. So some other games that are also important, but maybe not on the level of the last 3, are games like Sayonara Wild Hearts, which got announced at the Video Game Awards last year, Super Meat Boy Forever, Team Sonic Racing, Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled, Liar Princess and the Blind Prince, The Princess Guide, and Caligula Effect Overdose. Out of those games, Galen, which ones do you think that you're more excited about?
So, of that list, I feel like The Liar Princess and The Blind Prince is the one that's catching my attention the most right now.
Mm-hmm. It does have a beautiful art style.
It's got a beautiful art style. I was not made aware of this game back when it came out in Japan. Because it came out back in like May of last year or something, didn't it?
Yeah, it's been out for a while.
Yeah. So this is the first time that I've actually heard about the game or seen about the game. Aesthetically, it looks really pleasing. I can definitely see how the story can definitely invoke a lot of emotions, and Nippon is usually really good about conveying those stories and conveying those feelings to the characters. So I'm really excited about this game.
Yeah, so the story, from what I remember hearing about it, is that the prince is blind and you have to lead him everywhere, and it's like a puzzle platformer with some action elements as well. And you are a princess who is actually a monster or something like that, right?
Yeah, it's you are a princess who turns into a monster, and it's actually your fault that the prince is blind, but you feel sorry for the prince, and that's why you are leading him through the safety of this enchanted woods and trying to save him. And you secretly want to be with him, but you have this monster side that if he ever learned the truth of what you actually are, there's no way he would accept you. So there's a lot of themes of self-acceptance, even like depression. And just from the trailer and what I've seen, there's so much storytelling potential in this game.
That's cool. It's very much like a classic storybook kind of narrative, right? It's like a grim kind of story.
The grim fairy tale style is the closest thing that I can kind of like relate it to. Yeah,
that does sound really interesting. Are there any other games that sound intriguing to you?
It's not so much as intriguing, but I'm really interested to see both how Sonic Team Racing and Crash Team Racing finally does when they come back out for the Switch. Having such a strong competition with Mario Kart, I feel like when these games do finally come out, and granted, both of them are remakes, actually, like enhanced remakes.
I thought Team Sonic Racing was a brand new entry.
You might be right on that. I know that they have had Sonic Racing games in the past.
They have.
I can't remember about this particular one.
I think this one's new.
So, regardless, they're going to be put up to par against Mario Kart, especially on the same console. I'm really interested in seeing what the future of both of these franchises are and how well they are received, and if this is something that kind of like kicks Nintendo in the pants and is like, hey, listen, you've got these other guys, you're not the only competition here anymore, so let's see what you can actually do now.
I really don't think that's the case, though. Like, Mario Kart is such a huge giant in the kart race. They invented the kart. Well, I don't know if they invented it, but they popularized for sure the kart racer. So I don't think that there's any of that really happening.
I feel like Mario Kart invented a subcategory called mascot racer, and that's what a lot of these games are falling into. I feel like Mario Kart was the one to start that and to kind of set the standard of what to expect from a mascot racer.
Bring back Chocobo Racing. That's what I want. Remember that one that they were sort of making one for the 3DS and they canceled it?
I remember that. Oh yeah.
Bring back Chocobo Racing. But Chocobo everything, all right, guys? Damn it, Square. Make some smaller games instead of these gigantic, ridiculous games like 15 that end up being a cluster. Make Chocobo Racing.
Yeah, make simple games with simple storylines like Kingdom Hearts 3.
Oh my god. I can't even with that.
It's all of the tumbleweeds. Otherwise, I'm also excited for Super Meat Boy. I mean, I don't really have much to say on that one other than I really liked the platform till you die genre. N Plus was another one that was very similar. And I know they came out with a sequel called N++ that was very similar in that you're going to keep dying until you finally get through it, and you're going to die a lot. The original Super Meat Boy, just like that. I haven't looked too much into Super Meat Boy Forever. I know that they've definitely made some improvements and fine polished an already polished game. So those are the big ones that I'm excited for. What are you excited for coming up out of this list?
I already had my crazy excitement when it was first announced, but Sayonara Wild Hearts I'm really excited for. Like we don't even have like concrete details on what it is. We just had a trailer and that's about it. And it looks like everything I want in my life. So definitely that game. I want to talk a little bit about Caligula Effect Overdose, because I feel like this is going sort of under the radar for a lot of people.
Yeah.
This game is a remake of a video game that came out on the PS Vita a few years back. Now, follow along when I say this. This game is a Shin Megami Tensei / Persona spiritual side project.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, but follow along with me. The narrative is written by Tadashi Satomi, who worked on the first 3 games in the Persona series, Persona 2 being a big favorite of mine. So we know that the narrative is going to be brooding. And then the music is being done by former Shin Megami Tensei series composer Tsukasa Masuko. And we know that the narrative focuses on modern pathology and trauma, and the characters are apparently, they've violated some variety of social taboos. So it's going to be kind of a heavy game. And whether they go like wacky heavy with it or just like truly somber, I'm up for both of those things. I like those kinds of things to be explored. The battle system is a turn-based RPG style, and you are trapped in some sort of like virtual world like the Matrix, but you're trapped.
Okay.
Back when the game came out on the Vita, I heard the battle system was really good, but the game actually ran poorly and it was slow for loading and whatnot. So this is a full remake for the PS4, the Switch, and Windows. So I'm all for it. If you are interested in Shin Megami Tensei games, in Persona, this is a game to look out for. It's also a bit of a budget release too. I think it's coming out a little bit cheaper than like your standard price.
Well, in any game that has that kind of personality to it, like those other games usually bring about, you've already piqued my interest when it comes to that.
Yeah, visually too, it's also taking quite a page from Shin Megami Tensei games.
And that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So let's talk about some other games that either don't have a confirmed date or we're skeptical that they're going to come out this year. We're talking about Bloodstained, Ritual of the Night, Dragon Quest Builders 2, Town, which is a new game developed by Game Freak for the Switch, Shin Megami Tensei V, Wargroove, Killer Queen Black, Indivisible, and Pillars of Eternity 2. So what jumps out from that list?
So the biggest surprise for me is that Pillars of Eternity 2 are coming out for the Switch. I know this game came out rather recently, and fun story, the characters from my additional DLC from last week, the guys who do Critical Role, the Pillars of Eternity 2 developers actually asked them to come on and record a couple of voices from their characters from that first campaign. And it's additional DLC on the computer version, and I'm really hoping that that carries over to the Switch version.
Yeah, I think it will. The game came out recently, well, not recently, but like I think in summer of last year for PC, and then it's going to come out on Switch, Xbox, PlayStation at some point in 2019.
And I mean, the game plays very much like a Diablo-esque RPG where you're creating your character, you're upgrading your character, a lot of different quests that you can actually go through that with. So it's more than just your standard like dungeon crawler hack and slash type game.
Yeah, I've heard that the narrative of it is like cream of the crop kind of thing. It's like Diablo or Divinity or Baldur's Gate, where it's like these are one of the best games in this genre.
Yeah, I really hope that this does come out for the Switch. Personally, I really hope it comes with that additional content too.
I have to assume that it will, because that was one of the first DLC that was released for the game on PC. Anything else?
I'm excited to hear more about Town.
Me too.
Also, I honestly would be totally okay if they just kept that name of it. Like, they probably won't. They'll probably spruce it up and make it at least add like a second byline to it, like Town, the realm that, was forgotten. I feel like it's a pretty good name for what they have shown for, recruiting different people of the town to fight along your side and to encourage them to help you out in protecting the town itself. It seems like the game's going to foster very much this idea of community within a fantasy town. I don't remember if I have seen something similar to that in the past, so I'm very excited to see where they go with this and what more they showcase of it.
Me too. I think we've only seen like 30 or 40 seconds of it in a direct that we had over the summer or fall.
Yeah.
The visuals are so incredibly charming. Like, as soon as I see it, I don't even know what the game is. As soon as I see it, I'm like, I want that game.
It's incredibly endearing. Yeah.
Yeah. It reminds me so much of like Fantasy Life, Ever Oasis, and Snack World. It's so cute. And we also know that it's definitely going to have turn-based combat and some sort of strategic elements to the combat as well. So that's right up my alley. I really want to hear more about Town.
Yeah, and we know that, you know, as far as turn-based combat is concerned, you know, Game Freaks definitely has a good pedigree on, like, smoothing that out and nailing it down to make it feel balanced and enticing and entertaining.
Yeah. So in addition to Town, I'm hyped for Shin Megami Tensei V. We don't really know much about it yet. I don't think it's coming out this year. I think that's one of the titles that's like Metroid, where it's like sometime in the future kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
we'll see. I love the Shin Megami Tensei games. I love dungeon crawling, and I love the dark and gothic aesthetic. You know, I'm a fan of the edge, right? I'm a fan of edgelords. So I love that. I really loved Shin Megami Tensei 3, where it had this just depressing atmosphere. I'm actually kind of excited for Bloodstained as well. After I played Bloodstained Curse of the Moon, which was like a Kickstarter goal $10 eShop game, it was one of my favorite games that I played last year. And so it made me so excited for whatever's going to be coming up in the new one. And plus, I think at least some of the people from WayForward are working on that game as well. So they do action platformers really well. So I know that it's in good hands.
Now, this one actually kind of slipped under my radar, both this game and Curse of the Moon. How does the game play? Personally, I know very little about it, so.
I also don't know too much about Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, which is the main game. It's done by Igarashi, the guy that did Castlevania Symphony of the Night. And
yeah.
And it ushered Castlevania to turn into what is known as Metroidvania, because before that it wasn't like that. So it's very much like a Symphony of the Night kind of game, which is cool. I'm all for that. But I was excited and I was probably going to pick it up, but I didn't think too much of it until I played Curse of the Moon. Curse of the Moon is a short game that is very much like older Castlevania. Everything about it was so well done. I couldn't believe that something like this could have easily not existed because it was a Kickstarter goal. It was so good.
You saying that this was the Kickstarter one, I actually remembered what you were talking about on this, because he like went on and was like, hey, here's the artwork. I want to make a game that's kind of similar to this. Please give me money to make this game. And then he made like 10 times the amount of what his original goal was or something.
It was one of the highest funded Kickstarters for sure.
I have heard about this game actually.
Yeah. You should buy Curse of the Moon because that game's like $9 or $10 on the eShop, and I loved it so much.
Yeah, done. And I didn't even know that it had come out yet.
So in addition to that, I'm also interested to hear more about games like Wargroove, which we've been getting little drip feed information about. That's like what's it called? Not Tactics Advance. Advance Wars.
Advance Wars?
Yeah. It's like a spiritual successor to Advance Wars done by a Western development team that's an indie development team. So that game has tons of personality and polish. And I mean, it looked done a year ago. So I just can't wait to see all of the incredible content that's going to be in that game. The music is sounding great. Every once in a while they post something about the music. And then of course, Killer Queen Black. That's the little indie game it was a arcade cab, I think, in somewhere in the Pacific Northwest, and then it went to some other cities, and then somehow Nintendo got the indie developers together, and they're making like a revamped version of what that arcade cab was for the Switch. It's 2D action, objective based. You can kind of think of it as sort of like a Overwatch but in 2D kind of thing.
Yeah.
There's multiple objectives to score different points. It's just about what you choose strategically to do.
Isn't this the one that Eric said that he played on the podcast a couple weeks ago?
That's right, yeah.
I remember him talking about this game. Yeah, it sounded a lot of fun.
A friend of mine with some other friends for a birthday party, and they ended up catching it and played it in Chicago years and years ago. Because it was an arcade cab that like had, I think, 8 slots or something like that. So of course it it stood out. And then everybody tried it, and everybody was like, that was the highlight of the night.
That's really cool. That's really cool. Yeah, I'm excited to hear about that one.
Me too. And then just to top things off, Indivisible. This is also a game that like I have been so excited about before. It's very much inspired by like Valkyria Chronicles. Is it Valkyria Chronicles? No, not Valkyria. Sorry.
No, Valkyria Chronicles. Yeah.
No, Valkyrie Profile.
Oh.
On the PS1. It's a turn-based game, but there is some like active time battle aspects to it as well, where depending on which character you have attack when, they can do combos and they can block certain things. Very exciting, fast-paced battle systems. In addition to 2D platforming and puzzle solving. And the art looks so good. All of the artists they have on it are so incredibly talented. It looks like an incredibly high-quality Saturday morning cartoon for me. Whenever that game's coming out, I don't care. I'm buying it. I can't wait.
Nice.
Now, one other game I wanted to bring up, just to sort of mention, just, you know, put it in the mindset of everybody, is Pikmin 4. We heard about this game years and years ago, before when like the NX was known as the NX and the Wii U is still a thing. We heard from Miyamoto that it was pretty much done then, but not for a specific platform. And then when Hey Pikmin came out on the 3DS, everybody was like, oh, that's what he was talking about. Then he said, no, that's not what I'm talking about. There's another game. So there's a game apparently sort of on the shelf. Are we going to hear about it this year? I would love to hear about it. I loved Pikmin 3 so much.
I feel like this might be one of the games that they're going to sit on for a little while, just until they... It'll be a while, but when they eventually do run into kind of a slower year or a slower time frame, I wouldn't be surprised if we heard about this game, like at least get an announcement of, hey, this is definitely the console that we're going to be launching it for and everything. I mean, we might get more info about this at E3, but I would also not be surprised if this is something that they're just biding their time and waiting for.
Yeah, I normally wouldn't be too eager to hear what's going on with it, but after playing Pikmin 3, which I thought was the absolute best one, I want to see Pikmin 4.
Yeah.
So this past year, we've seen ports from the Wii U. We've seen games like Bayonetta, Donkey Kong. Even this year, we're already seeing New Super Mario Bros. U being ported over to the Switch, all with updated features and whatnot. Do you think that we're going to see some more ports from Wii U? And if so, what game would you really like to see from the Wii U brought over to the Switch?
Well, and I think I mentioned this last time, I would really love to see them make a port of Wonderful 101.
Oh, yeah,
I feel like that game did not get the attention that it deserved. At the launch time that it launched at and on the platform that it launched on, I feel like it got a bit of a bad rap.
I think so, too.
Another game, if they are just going off of games that they know will work well, I would love to see them come out with a Switch version of Super Mario Maker.
Yeah, I think that is kind of inevitable. Rather than a port, I think they'll do some sort of soft sequel.
Like a new version.
Yeah. I always felt that if the Switch had launched with Super Mario Maker, it would have been much more of an attractive console.
Yeah.
So for me, on the Wii U ports, I would love to see Xenoblade Chronicles Cross come over because that game is so good and I think more people need to play it. But if I have to pick just one, I really want to see Tokyo Mirage Sessions Sharp FE. That game is so good, you don't even know. Don't even laugh.
I'm laughing because that is the one Wii U game that I have mentioned several times that I need to pick up. Every time I try to explain like the concept of the game to my wife, she keeps telling me that, yeah, she would play the heck out of that game.
She would. I know your wife. She would play that game. Like, you're making it in the idol industry, and you have these stands, basically, from JoJo. You're fighting with all these crazy powers. It's such a beautiful harmony of garbage J-pop nonsense, and I love it. I eat it up. I eat it for breakfast.
It feels like such the perfect amount of ridiculousness, and I love every minute of it. Correct me if I'm wrong, was this the one that They also brought in a couple of special guest characters from Fire Emblem.
Yes, no.
I felt like it was this game.
It is. So originally when this game was announced, it was announced as a pure crossover between Shin Megami Tensei and Fire Emblem. So everybody got their hopes up, right? Then when the game was unveiled for what it is, it was much more Shin Megami Tensei. It was actually much more Persona / new IP with a little bit of Fire Emblem thrown in. So people were disappointed about that, understandably, because they were told that it was going to be a crossover. But what we actually did get was a brilliant game. It was one of the best JRPGs that I've played in, I don't know, I want to say like the last 5 to 6 years. It was so good. It had a fantastic battle system, and then it was tough as nails like a Shin Megami Tensei game. Lots of customization, lots of personalities to all of the different characters. There were some characters that were definitely like, okay, this is tropey, but it was enjoyable. If you allowed yourself to roll around in garbage, God, there was so much good garbage there. Smelled so good, you know?
Nintendo, if you port this game, I will buy it up like in a heartbeat.
They really should.
I feel like I missed my chance for the Wii U.
Yeah, everybody did. It sold really poorly in Japan and in the West as well. So I don't know if they actually would do that. I don't know if that's helpful or harmful for them porting it over. But it had a really, really high production value. It had songs and choreography done by Avex Tracks, which is one of the biggest, what are those called? Like music companies in Japan. It's actually the biggest independent one in Japan. Mm-hmm. They churn out like idols and J-pop stars like nobody's business. It was so charming. I want to see it on the Switch.
Yeah.
You know what I really want to see in the future is I want to see this series continue. I want to see more Tokyo Mirage sessions, but then Sharp whatever else. Instead of Sharp Fire Emblem, they could do a sequel to that, sure, go ahead. But like do another Nintendo crossover in it, where you're doing something in Japan, something very Japanese, but then the crossover is with Metroid characters, or gosh, I don't know, Splatoon characters or something like that. And you know what I mean? And just like throw that in there, incorporate it in such a weird way, and do these Shin Megami Tensei designed Splatoon characters. It would be so great. I would love to see something like that. Just pure imagination, pure creativity flowing out of everybody. That's what I want to see in video games.
Oh god, that sounds like so much fun.
That's what this game had. It had creativity.
So many games. Going back a little bit, another game that I really want to see come out, some of the eShop games. Now, one that jumps out to me is Cloudberry Kingdom.
Oh, the one game from Ubisoft.
Yeah. If you haven't played the game, it is... Oh god, how do I describe this? It's like if you combined the air jumping worlds of Mario with Super Meat Boy.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's very much a precision platformer. You play as, I believe you play as a rundown hero, or a retired hero who has to come back and save the princess, and he's like completely out of shape, going on this platform hell-esque adventure. And they're very short levels, but they're very taxing and very demanding levels at the same time.
That sounds super stressful.
It is, and it's one of those kind of games. Like I was saying before, Super Meat Boy Forever, N++, it's one of those kind of games where you have to get to the end, you're going to die a bunch of times till you get there. But one of the things I really liked about it was that it had a procedurally generated level maker where it will randomly make a level for you based on whatever difficulty you set it at, and every level is beatable. Like, the game is designed to, there is no way you can't finish this game, but you set things up to the highest difficulty, and it's like Mario Kaizo level of like difficulty and precision to it. Yeah, there's a lot of play value and a lot of replay value that you can get out of this. Another series I'd really love to see them reboot and bring back and port over would be Pushmo.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I actually played the first one pretty heavily. I think I actually completed all the puzzles that it had on there. Granted, it's not like a Wii U port, but I definitely feel like there is still a home for that kind of game on the Switch.
There was a
Especially
push mode game on the Wii U. Did you know that?
Oh, I didn't know that, actually.
Yeah. There was 2 on the 3DS and 1 on the Wii U.
There you go. Port that one over.
No, do a mega compilation and put them all in there.
Yeah. Slap a $25 price tag on that. I'm down.
So wrapping this all up with a neat little bow, of speculation, is hardware revision rumors. So this springs from a Wall Street Journal article from quite a while ago where they mentioned that there was going to be a new revision coming out or whatever in 2019 with a better screen or something like that. I don't really remember. But just going speculative, what would you like to see in a Switch model revision or an edition for the Switch? And when is a good time for something like this?
Not for a while. Like, I honestly don't think we will see a Switch Plus or a Switch XL anytime soon. I also question, as far as graphics quality, how much more you can actually get out of the screen without it becoming redundant and just toting off numbers for the sake of, hey, my numbers are bigger than yours. Because we actually see that in phones a lot more, because they're starting to tote, hey, here's a 4K screen phone. Your eyes physically can't tell the difference when the screen is that size. One thing that I think they can improve on is the hardware speed. It has been proven in several games that there definitely is a difference compared, or when you're comparing the hardware speeds of running the game in a dock versus in handheld mode.
Yeah, I mean, almost all games.
Well, yeah. I worry, though, that if you make that kind of an adjustment or make that kind of an improvement, it's going to become troublesome for game developers.
Yeah.
Like, for people who have the original Switch.
Right.
Yeah. Where I feel like they should be focusing on are different kind of paraphernalia and improvements to the actual Joy-Con controller itself. I don't really feel like we're going to get much of a hardware improvement from the console anytime soon.
Interesting. So realistically, I don't know if we are going to see a hardware revision. I think that the Wall Street Journal rumor is, I think the article is pretty credible. So maybe we will see a revision where the screen is nicer, or maybe they're just going to start selling the same Switch, the same SKU or whatever, but it's not even going to be known to us, really. And it's just going to be like, oh, we're using a better screen now. We saw that with the 3DS. That happened before. So that could be the case.
And you also saw an improvement like that made by the PlayStation Vita as well. After a couple of years, they actually changed the way the console was actually made by like changing from an OLED screen to a higher quality LCD version. And they just discontinued the old model.
But they didn't like market it as something like, oh, this is the Vita Plus or anything like that, right?
Correct. It was just, hey, this is the new Vita that you can buy. It's not like Vita Premium or anything like that.
Right.
This is a hard one to think about because I can really make an argument for both sides. I feel like there definitely are improvements you can make to it when you are playing in that handheld mode. I think you could increase the processor capacity. I think you can increase the screen resolution, and you can make it play closer to what it is in dock mode when you're in handheld mode. On the other side of this, coming from a programmer's perspective, I'm worrying that if you're building your game around those specifications, you're going to be outing yourself on people who want to play it on a previous console.
Right. Also, I mean, we've sort of seen that before where developers, if it's too troublesome for them to port their third-party game over in addition to it being on the PS4 and the Xbox, they're either going to do a terrible job or they're going to just not do it. And then doing a terrible job leads to them on the next game not doing it. So they have to be careful not to shoot themselves in the foot, right?
Yeah. Ultimately, we'll see on what happens. Like, regardless of if they make improvements, we're not going to see it for quite some time.
Yeah, I think, if anything, 2020 is the time to do that. Not 2019, but sometime in 2020.
I would even say later than that. I'd say like 2021, to be honest.
Well, depending on how big of a revision it is, right? If it's a big old stinking overhaul and it is in the terms of more capable hardware, then yes, I agree. But if it's something like a Switch Mini or like a cheaper version because they want, like we talked about this a little bit before, at least I did with Eric, if they want more Switches in the household and they're going to want like Switch Minis or like a cheaper version where the controllers don't come off or something like that, then that's going to get it into more hands, right? So I don't know, maybe that's it. For me personally though, what I do want to see, and I don't know if this is possible, I'm not really talking about from an engineering perspective because I don't know that, but just talking as a fan, I would love to see something that you plug into the back of your dock into those USB ports there that helps give you more processing power. I don't know if that's a thing at all, but then if it's that, then you put your Switch into your dock and then you go to your options menu and you just click the Pro mode or whatever it is. Just like with the PlayStation Pro where you have the Pro advanced features or whatever the hell. Something like that, because then a developer could use that or not use it at all, and that's fine.
We'll just have to see.
So that about does it for the 2019 wrap-up. Of course, we're going to be talking about all kinds of news, all kinds of nonsense more as the year goes on. But for right now, let's talk about some additional DLC. And I'm not talking about DLC with games. I'm talking about a segment that I introduced not too long ago. Every week, Galen and I will have one recommendation for you of any media whatsoever, just to diversify your interests. That's a callback. So for me, this week, my additional DLC that I'm recommending to you is the soundtrack to GRIS. This is by the band Berlinist, also out of Barcelona, Spain. As I talked about earlier,
not to be confused with a movie.
I told you that joke is tired and not funny.
And I told you I was going to come up with a list of like several of them.
Not happening. This is a soundtrack that is absolutely amazing, takes you on an emotional journey. It is just as important as the visuals are in that game. I love listening to this soundtrack. It's on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music, YouTube. It's everywhere. Please check it out. It's by Berlinist. Links will be in the description. Galen, what you got for us?
So before I go into mine, I've got a question for you. What do Bowser, Ganondorf, Sephiroth, and Dr. Robotnik all have in common?
They're all cisgender men.
I was actually thinking that they were all in the same boy band together.
Potato.
My additional DLC this week is the album for Big Bad Bosses. This is a collaboration of YouTubers who have gathered together and taken on the personas of these characters. And just that, they have made a boy band album in the same vein of like NSYNC or Backstreet Boys. Or it's really fun. It has a lot of referential humor to these different categories. What is impressive is that the music is compiled by two people, actually. DJ Cutman, who's really big in the OC remix community, as well as Grant Kirkhope. He did a lot of the music from like Donkey Kong Country series, as well as music from the new DLC for Mario and Rabbids. And yeah, just the album's a lot of fun to listen to. It's on Google Play. You can also listen to a couple of their albums on YouTube as well. They're definitely worth checking out.
Very interesting. So that does it for additional DLC. Let's move on to listener mail. Hi! We got some listener mail from Chris. This is not so much a question as it is a comment. It's more of a response to my comments from a couple weeks ago where I was saying, who is Pokemon Let's Go for? I don't know what the audience is on this. So Chris writes us an email about that. Chris writes, I just found and subscribed to the podcast and it's great. Thank you, Chris. I am 52, got my first Famicom and Game Boy when I was in the Marines and living in Japan. I didn't really grow up gaming that much. I had a Sinclair ZX81, Atari 2600, and played on a friend's Commodore 64. That's really taking it back with the Sinclair. My kids did grow up playing Nintendo, and I recently... Scrolling. I recently bought the Pikachu version of Let's Go with the Pokeball Plus, and I love it. To quote my 25-year-old son, this is a Pokemon game even you can finish. Challenge accepted. I also take my Pokeball to work and am leveling up my Magikarp as I am writing this. It's fun and not too hard and skill building for the real version. Thank you for writing in, Chris. I love that story.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. I love hearing little things like that. And also, what a story, too. 52, the Marines living in Japan. Awesome.
Leveling up a Magikarp. I mean, that's dedication.
Oh, man. I wonder if you got a Gyarados by now. You're going to love that Gyarados. That was one of my favorite things to do in the old games, is just level up Magikarp with Splash and crap. And then he turns into Gyarados. You're going to love it, Chris.
So much battle switching.
If you have an email and you want to write to us, you can write to us at NintendoEverythingPod@gmail.com. What's the email, Galen?
NintendoEverythingPod@gmail.com.
Send us your comments, your corrections, your complaints, and your questions.
And your Magikarps. Send all of your Magikarps.
Yeah, send me a picture of your Magikarps. And finally, this is a reminder that it's a weekly show. You're going to hear from us again next week. You can check us out everywhere you get podcasts, but iTunes and Spotify, we post bright and early Sunday mornings, and then everywhere else Sunday mid-afternoonish. For what's coming up on the site, the big old fat Phantasy Star interview is all done. It's going to be posted sometime this week. We broke it up into a couple of different posts, so you can check out not only what's good with Phantasy Star, what's good with Sega Ages, what troubles they had on the Switch, what they're doing to correct themselves and get themselves on the right track, what future games are coming out, and also them talking about doing yet another volume of releases of Sega Ages beyond what they even have planned right now. They talk about all that stuff in the interviews coming up, so check out that feature coming up pretty soon.
I'm really excited to hear about that one. You've been working on that one for a while.
Yeah, it is a ginormous interview. I even tried to combine a little bit and break it down a little bit. It's still 8 pages. It's enormous. You can get all your good news, all of your factual news without any tabloid nonsense at Nintendo Everything. We got the website NintendoEverything.com. That's where we do the news. We got a Facebook. Just search for us on there. We got a YouTube where we post lots of great content, lots of good trailers, and, of course, the lovely podcast. That's youtube.com/nineverything. We also got a Twitter. That's twitter.com/nineverything. Then you can find me at Twitter at Oni_Dino and Galen.
You can find me retweeting the definition of foreknowledge at Mobius087.
Or you could not. So please share this podcast with your friends. Maybe give us a rating on iTunes. It's how we get found. Without you guys, we don't exist. So thank you so much for your support. And remember, for everything Nintendo,
stay tuned to Nintendo Everything.
Bye-bye.
Later, everyone.